again this evening. Lou Hamilton from Audible Elegance in Cincinnati, Ohio. I hope you've been enjoying my YouTube videos. Please do subscribe. And if you get a chance, go over to our website and link into our Instagram and Twitter posts, because they're all very different. And if you're curious, go wander off to our orphanage where we have used equipment. Tonight I'm going to talk about something that's not related directly to audio at all, but it talks about methodology and trying to understand where the problem is coming from. And one of the big problems in our industry is one of these parts. It's called the turn signal and windshield wiper control for Ford SuperDuty trucks, of which I own one. And like many, many others, I suffered a failure. And what happens is that you can't turn the delay off, which really makes them annoying. Not to mention probably likely going to scratch your windshield. So there's some lovely videos out there by other folks who talk about how to replace this unit. And I did. Don't let the dealer talk you into a $250 bill, because it takes you about 12 minutes if you follow the videos. But once something's broken, you know, here at Audible Elegance, we get really curious as to about why it broke. So, needless to say, I rip it into a million parts and trying to figure out what failed. And this happens on electronic equipment as well, because many of them today are built using flow solder machines. So the parts are laid on there and they heat the solder up and it melts and sets it in place. And there's always these failures. So I first got into it looking at it from a mechanical aspect, you know, checking whether the ribbon cables were properly connected and was there anything interfering with the button controls, and, you know, looking at the control. And there were no answers there, no obvious answers. So I got real curious because I watched a video on a radio failure and how to deal with it. And what the chap said was, check the solder joints on the flow solder board. And so here I have the board on the back side. The contacts are great. They're properly sealed against causing any problems. So we go over to the other side, and now we have the connectors for the ribbon cables. Now, I have one of the ribbon cables, and as you can see, you know, the other end of the swiper, everything was fine. But then it was kind of like, okay, what could go wrong? Well, I checked the ribbon cable. That wasn't it. So it was kind of like, okay, how can I check the solder joints? And what I did was to go in, and at each one of these pins, I would put pressure on it to see whether it would move, because if it's soldered down, it won't move. And what I discovered over here in this little guy, right there, is a pin I could move. So what happens is, because of the heat and its movement, it fractured and no longer made the connection. Ergo, it would no longer turn off the delayed windshield wiper system. So when you're looking at problems, you know, sometimes they're easier to solve than you realize. If someone has one of these wiper controls, you can pull it off. You can check the pins. You have to be real delicate because the pins are very, very tight. But you can see this one here, it actually was able to move and bend around. I'm not going to pull it up. But this happens in all sorts of electronics products at home, where through heat and cool down, if it's not properly soldered, it will, you know, either fracture or move, and there's your problem. So my curiosity on what makes things tick in electronics extends into personal things. And for the Ford owners out there, you know, if you want to try to fix it before you wind up paying $125 or $130 for a switch, fine. I mean, if it's broken already, you can't make it worse. And that's the end of that story.